The Texans lost to the Panthers 16-10. And look, usually I like to give the other teams credit when they beat the Texans, but if you're a Panthers fan and you're watching this, I'm sorry, but the Panthers just deserve no credit for winning this game. The Texans completely lost this game. Way more, and I mean way more, than the Panthers won this game. Panthers didn't do anything special. Texans just decided not to do anything at all on offense. I mean, literally, Kyle Allen, their quarterback, pretty much gift wrapped the game for the Texans by handing them 3 fumbles. 3 fumbles. Defense gets 3 turnovers. You expect your team to win easily. But the Texans, they lost. And this is on 2 people, in my opinion. Deshaun Watson and Bill O'Brien. To a bigger extent, Bill O'Brien. He's the coach. He calls the shot. Yes, Deshaun Watson had a terrible game. That's why he deserves part of the blame. And I know some people don't like when other people criticize Deshaun Watson, and they're going to try to deflect it off Deshaun Watson. But come on, dude. Deshaun Watson, he missed wide open receivers. He wasn't seeing the field properly, in my opinion, and he took too many sacks. 5 of the 6 sacks that he took today were on him, holding on to the ball way too long. The only one that wasn't on him was the very first sack where Greg Manx completely got destroyed by Shaq Thompson. That is the only one that's not on Watson. But Watson had a terrible day. And like I said, whose fault is that? Bill O'Brien. He has to coach him up. He has to. Like, this game, offensively, penalties, bad calls, bad execution, bad clock management. All that is 100% on the coaching staff. That's just called not being prepared for a game. And like you guys know, I've been saying it all offseason. I said it some after the Jaguars game. Bill O'Brien's biggest issue, in my opinion, isn't play calling. It isn't the clock management. It's the fact that some games, the team just straight up does not show up to the game. Today was just one of them. Honestly, and that's a huge red flag, in my opinion. Now, another red flag is the offense. What happened? Was Deshaun Watson just not seeing the field properly? Or were the receivers not getting open? Now, if Deshaun Watson wasn't seeing the field properly, then that's a huge red flag. Why? Because Deshaun Watson still has the same issues that he had last year. That's what that means. If that's not the case, and the receivers aren't getting open, then guess what? That's still a red flag. Because there is no way, absolutely no way, that the Texans receivers shouldn't be getting open. I mean, DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, Kiki QT, Duke Johnson, the tight ends, Kenny Stills, even though he left the game early. And in case you guys are wondering, it's a hamstring injury. Hopefully he's okay, but who knows. But still, all those weapons, and they can't get open. Yeah, that's terrible, in my opinion. You can't have all those weapons and none of them get open. Come on. It's not the first time it happens this season either. Happened with the Jaguars game too. This is terrible, man. And I said, Bill O'Brien should only get fired if the Texans can't reach new heights, or if Watson doesn't improve or regresses. And so far, it's looking like Watson hasn't taken that next step yet. So, unless Watson somehow magically starts playing better and starts getting better, then Bill O'Brien's going to be gone come January. I can guarantee it. But overall, offensively, it was just terrible. I mean, let's see. Merciless gets a strip sack. Texans get the ball like at the 50. Texans drive down the field. It's like 2nd and 6 at the Panthers' 18-yard line. And then this man, Bill O'Brien, calls for a wide receiver pass. D-Hop throws the ball across the field, and it gets picked off. Who in the world calls that? Like, that's all fun and games. It's fun and games if you're up by 40, you're blowing these guys out. You could do whatever you want. But you weren't up. The way your offense was playing up to that point, terrible. You had to do whatever you had to do to score points, but instead, you call a terrible play call. D-Hop, even though he threw a terrible pass, even though he knew damn well he shouldn't have thrown it, the play shouldn't have been called in the first place. Let's be real, that's terrible. Next thing, I don't know how, but in the fourth quarter, Christian McCaffrey got this lucky catch where Allen completely overthrew him, but somehow, some way, the ball, he tipped it perfectly and he caught it. Bill O'Brien ends up challenging that, loses the timeout. That timeout later would have ended up being crucial, and maybe the Texans could have done something with it, but terrible clock management there. And yeah, like that's just the story of this game. The offense just never got going. They were out of sync all game. And like I said, some people are going to try to blame the O-line, but the O-line, you can't expect them to block for 5-6 seconds. That's just unrealistic. At most 3 seconds. At most. But Deshaun's got to get rid of the ball some way, somehow. If they're open, find them, throw them the ball, good. If they're not open, throw it away, live to play another day. It's really that simple. Now, defensively, defense held them to 16 points. Defense was pretty much out there all day. Literally. That's what it felt like. Offense just couldn't get anything going, so naturally, the defense was out there all day. They held them to 16 points. I mean, they did what was expected of them. There was only really one terrible play, in my opinion, by the defense, and that was the one play where J.J. Watt had the sack on Kyle Allen, but he just flat out missed them. That would have knocked them out of field goal range, actually, so the Texans would have had a legit chance to maybe somehow tie the game and go to overtime and hope that Kyle Allen fumbled again or something. But nope, instead Kyle Allen ducks down, misses Watt, and then throws the ball to a wide open receiver. Like, how in the world do you let someone get that open on third down? Like, Jesus Christ. That was just terrible. But other than that, JJ had a good game, in my opinion. Whitney had a good game. DJ Reader had a good game. Linebackers had a good game. Overall, defensively, I feel like everyone had a decent game. And like I said in the Jaguars game, that's on playing the Panthers. That's not really on the defense just being this dominant force that no one can move the ball against. It's just flat out, we were playing a terrible offensive team. That's what it was. But unfortunately for the defense, our offense was even worse. Now, another thing worth noting is Kaimi Fairbairn. He missed like a 53-yard field goal. That thing went wide right. Wide right. This has been a reoccurring theme to Kaimi Fairbairn's season. if you guys remember, he missed the PAT versus the Saints, and then last week versus the Chargers, he left 4 points on the board. This week, well, he missed a field goal. Not only that, on his one PAT attempt, he almost missed it. Just barely got it in. Kaimi Fairbairn is the problem on this team. Last year, he was great. This year, not so much, and that's really unfortunate because, in my opinion, good kickers are pretty difficult to find. Now, I guess the MVP of the game is Anger, our punter, because he had a bunch of great punts today. But other than that, team was a complete and utter mess, and it falls on Bill O'Brien. And this is really upsetting because last week, Bill O'Brien probably had his biggest win as the Texans head coach against the Chargers. This week, he probably had his biggest loss. I mean, literally, this game should have been a blowout. Easily. Like I said, the Panthers didn't do anything special. The Texans' defense was prepared, but the Texans' offense just laid an egg. They didn't show up. That's on O'Brien. He didn't have them ready. Now, if you're one of those people that only want to hear the positive, well, here's one positive for you. The Colts lost. That's it. That's the only positive. But if you want to be realistic, that only makes things worse for the Texans because guess what? If the Texans take care of business today, how they should have against this terrible Panthers team, this terrible backup quarterback, the Texans would have had a 3-1 lead on the division. Texans would be 3-1, the Colts would be 2-2, the Titans would be 2-2, and the best record the Jags could have had would be 2-2. So, yeah, in my opinion, it just makes things worse for the Texans. A missed opportunity for the Texans to take control of this division. Now, everything looks bad for the Texans. Why? Well, we're 2-2. Next week, they take on the Falcons. The Falcons have Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan, he's no Kyle Allen. They have Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu. They have Ridley. So, you best believe Matt Ryan is going to show up and he's going to completely tear this defense apart. The only way the Texans have a chance of winning that game is if the Texans offense shows up and makes it into a shootout. But the way this offense has been playing, we don't know what offense we're going to get. Are we going to get the terrible offense or are we going to get the high explosive offense? We don't know. So there's a very good chance the Texans will lose that game. After that game, they travel to KC to take on the Chiefs. Another game that the only way the Texans can win is if it turns into a shootout where Deshaun Watson gets the ball last. But other than that game, the Texans could easily lose. After that, the Texans travel to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. See, if it was just regular, taking on the Colts, it'd be fine. But the Colts will be coming off a bye week. That means the Colts are going to have an extra week to prepare for the Texans. So, yeah. You could potentially be looking at a 4-game losing streak for the Texans. So by the end of week 7, the Texans could realistically be sitting with a terrible record of 2-5. After that game, they take on the Raiders. And guess what? The Raiders just beat the Colts. So if the Texans aren't careful, the Raiders could very well beat the Texans. And after that game, the Texans travel to London to take on the Jaguars. The Texans have never played in London. So that game could very well be a loss. So now you see how big this loss was. This was a must-win game, low-key, because the Texans' schedule, it's about to enter the brutal part. And they're here sitting at 2-2. Very inconsistent. Now, I guess you could say that 2-2 is better than the 1-3 record we had last year after the first 4 games. You could say that. But the Texans should be 4-0 right now. 2-2, unacceptable. Even though I had the Texans being 2-2 after the first 4 games in my prediction video I dropped like way back in, I think, June. That was different though, because I didn't think the Chargers would be very injured, and I didn't think Cam Newton would be injured. So, yeah, the Texans just missed opportunity here. You played a really injured Panthers team, and they blew it. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have for this game. Comment down below your own frustrations on what happened today, and be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.